God bless Doug Poppa, an honest cop.
See, we did it, Doug. You don't come out, you don't buck the system. No matter what the reason is, you just can basically keep your mouth shut.
The high price one cop is paying for telling the truth.
Support the Doug Poppa podcast at paypal.me/Doug Poppa. Once again, support the Doug Poppa podcast at paypal.me/Doug Poppa. Contact the podcast at dpoppa, Poppa, at proton.me. Contact again, dpoppa at proton.me. The Doug Poppa Podcast is an independent investigative journalist site located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Follow the Doug Poppa Podcast on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other platforms. Welcome, folks, to episode 159 of the Doug Poppa Podcast for Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. Never forget, September 11th, 2001, the biggest intelligence failure in United States history. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I post a lot of stuff on my X account before I do podcast. If I get information, I'll put it out as quick as I can on X, which is formerly Twitter. Okay, on September 8th, I posted this on X. It's the original story that I did. I broke the story. The Doug Poppa podcast broke the story on the LVMPD Sgt. Menon incident at the at the Convention Center Area Command. We broke that story on May 27th, 3 months before Menon was arrested by the LVMPD. And I posted this September 8th. Podcast people, that audio podcast, you're not going to be able to see the video, so that's why I talk on the stuff that's on the screen. I posted this on September 8th, and it says, update, my exclusive breaking news investigation that was published on May 27th in episode 154 that was titled, Vegas Cops Targeted Citizens on Strip, Violated Civil Rights, Provoked Altercations to Make Arrest, has now exceeded 10,000 views on X. And ladies and gentlemen, today I think it's 11,500, approaching 12,000, and there's over 4,000 views directly from the YouTube site. Ladies and gentlemen, on August 16th, I posted this also on X. I posted that on X, and I said, breaking, LVMPD vice scandal, sources, vice sergeant on suspension for alleged criminal misconduct involving massage parlors, retired this week during probe. Vice detective involved with pimp under investigation is married to an LVMPD officer, and vice lieutenant transferred out because of the scandal. And then you can see the bottom part of that on the screen on the right-hand side. On August 17th, I posted exclusive update. Multiple LVMPD sources have confirmed to the Doug Poppa podcast that the vice sergeant who retired while under investigation is Sean W. Lucero, Lucero. Allegedly, according to the sources, Lucero was taking bribes from massage parlors. And then I put on there, retiring shouldn't negate criminal charges, sources said. And then on September 6th, I updated that. I said, breaking news update. LVMPD sources confirmed to the Doug Poppa podcast that the female vice detective is Catherine Montalban Benzine, Benzine. Benzine is currently on administrative leave, sources say. Sources say a search warrant was executed on Sergeant Lucero's residence prior to him retiring. And I did some research, and I found this on an LVMPD site. And it looks like that was published by the LVMPD Southeast Area Command on August 3rd, I believe it is, 2021. And they're saying, thank you, Southeast Area Command Sergeant Lucero, for his presentation on the duties of police detectives. And then, interestingly enough, doing some research on Vice Detective Benzine, I came up with this. And they both have social media accounts with their photographs on there, which I'm not publishing. But I did find this article. Okay. And this was published by the Las Vegas Review-Journal in April of 2014. I believe it's April 6th. And they did a story on Catherine Benzine when she was a police explorer. I believe she was still in high school. And I think that was the photo was taken March 5th, 2014. You can go to you can go to the internet and pull up her name, and you'll read this this article. So that is her, what she looked like, I guess, pretty much 10 years ago. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I post a lot of stuff on X. When I get the information, I put it out as quick as I can on X. So follow me at Doug Poppa1, Doug Poppa Podcast on X. It's another thing I posted on X. Get it up on the screen for you. Okay. And I posted this on September 6th. And it says, breaking news. The Doug Poppa podcast is hearing that several Convention Center Area Command officers are on administrative leave, reference the Menon investigation, and that refers to Sergeant Menon, who was arrested on August 30th. I broke that story on May 27th. Allegedly, Captain Stephen Connell, former Convention Center Area Command Bureau Commander, who's now in the Homicide Bureau, may be retiring. That's the information I'm hearing. So I posted that on September 6th. Okay. And if you remember, back on another podcast, remember I did 4 podcasts, I believe, so far on the Menon investigation. I said that I was receiving emails from police officers after I broke the story on May 27th, basically telling me that my information was wrong and to don't do any more stories on this. I found one of the messages here, so I'll read it to you because people were asking me about it in direct messages about this. And this is one from a police officer. He says, your sources on the script story are wrong. Appear to have motive other than the truth. Info you're putting out is false. And then he goes on to say, all contacts, meaning the police officers, have body-worn camera that doesn't support the story, which is why it's in internal affairs and not criminal internal affairs or criminal intelligence. You should know. Internal affairs deals with policy violations only. There's nothing to this. And remember, I talked about that. And the information this guy was giving me months ago, he was wrong. My information was correct, and that was proven when the arrest report came out that I read in one episode. I think it was episode 158. I read that entire arrest report. But this is the type of stuff I was getting. And then he goes on to say, you do good work. I know I do. I do great work. Don't let bad sources give you a slanderous mess. Menon is a great sergeant that had one disgruntled, and then he doesn't say anything after that, comma, research him and you'll see. Probably the only cop I know that attended Harvard. Was the best counterterrorism detective on Metro for years. So remember, I talked about this. I mentioned that prior to him being sergeant, promoted to sergeant, Kevin Menon was a Homeland Security detective with Metro, and he worked counterterrorism. And I also said that I heard that he went to the Middle East because he speaks the Middle Eastern language. I think it was Dubai, my sources were telling me. And so this guy was completely wrong, but this is similar to the other messages that I got. I erased some of them. I don't keep them. I have a whole folder. I need a whole hard drive for all these nasty messages I would get over the years. But that's similar to the ones I was getting telling me to lay off. And so he's a Harvard graduate. What does that mean? To me, it means absolutely freaking nothing. Maybe he missed the course on civil rights when he was attending Harvard school, whatever his major was over at the Harvard school. But that's interesting while I'm on that subject because a ranking member of the police department told me that Sasha Larkin was the assistant sheriff. She's retired a couple of months ago, and I said that out on Twitter. She was also the assistant sheriff when I broke the story of Sheriff Kevin McMahill's alleged affair with her. Anyway, she's retired. According to one of my sources, Sasha Larkin, when she was on the department, once made the comment at a meeting that Kevin Menon was the future of the department and that the department should hire more people from Ivy League universities, referring to Menon because he's supposedly a graduate from Harvard. Well, it didn't work out too good with Menon for the LVMPD. He's a disgraced police officer, corrupt. There's many charges against him. And also, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have it in front of me, but they added an additional charge on him according to the court records that I looked at on Monday when he was arrested, and I said that in the other podcast. He was arrested on the 2 counts of suborning perjury, which are felonies. He was arrested on the battery, which turned out to be the police officer, and I talked about that in the podcast. And he was arrested on 8 counts of oppression under the color of office, and then 1 count of oppression under the color office with force, which is a felony. Well, the other day, the Las Vegas Justice Court records, they put the criminal complaint in, and I don't have it right now, but I'll get it. But anyway, there's an additional charge. Now there's another charge of oppression under the color of office. So we have basically 10 now oppression under the color of office charges against Kevin Menon, according to the updated Las Vegas Justice Court record. So that's going on with him. Now, remember, in one of the podcasts I did, I think it was 157, I talked about comments that current and former Las Vegas Metro police officers were talking about on social media about the Menon arrest. And I have some more of those comments today from that site and from other sites on social media and people who comment to me. But I found this thing interesting. This is a citizen who commented on my X account a couple of days ago, and he says, why can't we have a transparent department and honest cops demanding integrity and tough love instead of weird shit going on all the time. No department is perfect, but we have some seriously questionable management. Good thing Poppa tells us what's going on. I get a lot of these comments like this from people because I've been breaking stories, like I said the other day, on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for years. Stories that the local media don't break. Sometimes once Metro will come out and put a bulletin out about somebody was arrested, then they'll do a story, usually that I published based from my sources, sometimes months before. And then other stories, other investigations that I've done, folks, that are never touched by the local media. The 74-year-old woman, Paula Prado Zuniga, I broke that story, stabbed over 60 times while Las Vegas Metro police officers were outside her apartment, heard her screams as she was being killed, wanted to go in to save her life, and were told to stand down by the sergeant. And I'll have all these links to these podcasts that I'm talking about in this in the description section as usual. And also look in the description section of a lot of these podcasts, because sometimes I'll update information that I get later on, sometimes weeks or months later, and I update it in the description section. The 12-year-old girl, back in 2019, I broke that story. Another story never touched by the media. Kidnapped and raped while going to school because of the incompetence of the sexual assault detectives back in 2018, when the same suspect kidnapped and raped an 11-year-old girl. And they didn't follow up on anything, and the guy was out. A year later, he kidnaps and rapes a 12-year-old girl. I broke that story. That also never hit the media. The lieutenant who built the department had thousands of dollars in overtime because he was staying home, not going to work. I broke that story. That's another thing the department didn't let the public know about. And there's multiple stories, ladies and gentlemen, over the years that I broke because the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, both under Joe Lombardo and the current sheriff, Kevin McMahill, who was a documented liar and documented pervert per a 1995 Internal Affairs Bureau investigation. He should have been charged in 1995 with oppression, but he had a guardian angel. And if I was elected sheriff, if I was running for sheriff and I was elected, and Kevin McMahill was the undersheriff when I took over, I would have fired him. He's a disgrace to the police department. Okay. Now, before I get to, or let me read some of these comments first. I just want to make sure I'm not missing nothing here. Okay, let's read these comments. This is another comment from a police site where they talk, and this is, I believe this is a retired cop. I don't think he's active. And he responded to somebody, said that is true, and they're basically talking about Captain Stephen Connell. And then he says, he was in modified academy. That was going on during my academy. And I talked about that the other day because Stephen Connell was a police officer in Colorado before he got hired by Metro. And if you went through an academy in another state, a lot of the times when you go to Metro, you don't have to go to the full academy. You go through called a modified academy, and that's what he's talking about here. And then he goes on, he says, it's absolutely amazing, though Spring Valley, he got to walk. Now he's talking about Connell, because Connell was the bureau commander years ago of the Spring Valley Area Command. And then he says, it does it again. And now the lower people suffer. I'm not excusing anyone underneath him, but the fact that there's no accountability for him is absolutely disgusting. Now he's talking about the Spring Valley Area Command under Captain Connell's command. And I'll talk about that in a second because I got some information on that. This is coming from police sources. I think I mentioned some of this in a podcast about 2 years ago. I'll have to go back and find the clip and then do it in a future podcast. But these are some more comments relating to Captain Connell from police officers. Sadly, the Convention Center Area Command is under the, quote, leadership, unquote, of Steve Connell. And this is precisely his MO at any station that has been under his command. Spring Valley Area Command, South Central Area Command, and sadly, now the Convention Center Area Command. And remember, I said the other day, Steve Connell was the captain at the Convention Center Area Command, which covers the Las Vegas Strip, during the incidents with Kevin Menon and the other cops on Menon's flex squad. And then the person goes on and says, it's confounding how much he continues to get away with. With continued quote-unquote leadership such as his, Metro should be concerned about consent decree. Means a consent decree is when they pay off, even sometimes before a lawsuit is filed, and they don't admit guilt, but they get all the attorneys, they work out the deal with the money, and that's what they do. Remember, when I broke the story on, I think it was the second podcast I did on Menon, about the lawsuit that was filed by the doctor, the surgeon. That was the second story that I broke. That lawsuit was paid off, I think, August 30th. And my sources are telling me the only reason why they paid off on that lawsuit, because I broke the story on May 27th. That lawsuit was already in effect. It was filed back in 2020. So maybe that's true, but I think they paid off $75,000. And then there was like 2 other lawsuits, but they never followed through with them. So that's what this person's saying here. And then another person responds and says, he has a long history of disregard for civil rights. And then response to that, he most certainly does. Disorderly conduct is the go-to arrest for Connell in his unending quest for stats. The DA denies most of them too. And then referring to Sergeant Menon, this person says, Menon, only a few months as sergeant on the flex team. Remember, he was only a sergeant on that flex team for a few months at the Convention Center Area Command. That's what this person's referring to. And then it goes on, it says, I wonder what could possibly make him think that he could get away with this, meaning Menon. That's a very good question. It's also very telling to hear all these very junior P numbers, badge numbers, they call them P numbers at Metro, they're not badge numbers, junior officers hoping to make a good impression on their chain of command. Remind me, who again was at the helm of this chain of command? Yeah, which was Captain Connell. And then goes on here, another comment, it says, yep, what they are saying on the LVMPD social media page is 100% spot on. Remember I said about that site where I got those comments the other day? Go back and look at that podcast I did. I'll have it in the link in the section where those cops were making comments about Menon's arrest. So this person is saying, yeah, what they are saying on the LVMPD social media page is 100% spot on. I tried to call this out and got hammered. Yes, if you know, the instigator, Connell, has been protected for years. This started under his watch at Spring Valley Area Command, then repeated at South Central Area Command, and now Convention Center Area Command. Boots on the ground get hammered, major discipline and/or fired for going against these literally crazy and illegal dictates. Those who go along with it when caught are the fall guys. Menon is surely an idiot and should be held accountable, but the captain needs to finally be called out for this continued behavior. Now, I would love to get Captain Connell on an interview, and Sheriff McMahill and Under Sheriff Walsh. You know how you can contact me. Because you got to give him, I like to get his side of this stuff. But these were what current and former cops are saying. Now, I also got some information on this. I heard that when retired Deputy Chief Kelly McMahill, she's the wife of Sheriff McMahill, she retired, I believe, when Kevin McMahill was running for sheriff. When she was on the department, sources are telling me that she had several run-ins with Connell over the years because of his tactics, allegedly skirting the Constitution and police policy. That's what I was told. And that's Kevin McMahill's wife at the time. She was on the department, reached the rank of deputy chief. And then I heard that the complaints she made about Connell over the years fell on deaf ears. So that's out there, people, because the public has a right to know what's going on in their police department. So when I get this information, I put it out. Metro or anybody I mention in these podcasts can come out and respond or challenge the things that I say on this podcast. And so far for years, they have never done that. Now, more comments here. And I mentioned this the other day. This is the third flex team under Connell's command that has come under scandal/scrutiny. Connell escapes disciplinary action. Connell always lands on his feet. None have made it to the local media because all this was hushed up. Well, the Menon made it to the media only because I broke that story on May 27th. And sources are telling me that had I not broke that story, they're not too sure that it would have turned out the way it did with Menon being arrested, meaning that they're insinuating that there would have been another cover-up and nobody would have known about it. But I broke the story May 27th, and now everybody knows about it. Getting back to the Spring Valley Area Command, allegedly, flex team officers, when he was in charge of the Spring Valley Area Command, the bureau commander, one flex team officers were having sex with confidential informants. One officer tipped off a suspect that a search warrant was going to be executed at his home. And that was uncovered during the investigation of a cop that sent a text message to a bad guy. Some officers were terminated. Others received major suspensions. And one, I believe, what they're telling me, went through arbitration and got his job back, but that may be with the South Central one because I got these things a little bit mixed up from the people who would give me all this information. And that flex team at the time at the Spring Valley Area Command was disbanded. Then when Captain Connell was the captain, the bureau commander at the South Central Area Command, that flex team allegedly was making bad/false arrests for gun charges. One officer was captured on video calling a suspect with dreadlocks an N. I heard that officer was terminated, but that's the guy that I believe they're telling me that got his job back through arbitration. One of the fired officers, reference to this, they're telling me went to work at MGM Resorts International as an armed emergency response team officer. So I got a lot more information in this, ladies and gentlemen. Another comment that was made to me from other sources is how many officers under Connell's area commands have been fired and or given serious suspensions because of Connell's leadership. Again, that's coming from police officers, both current and retired former police officers. So that's what we got there. Now, I want to post this up on, is it covering up the time? Okay. I posted this on September 6th on my X, and it says breaking news. This is another one I'm looking into and hearing this. You know, there's crazy things that go on in Metro that you never hear about, and I hear about these things and I expose them, but this is a wild one here. Breaking news. The Doug Poppa podcast was told that a stolen/missing LVMPD police vehicle used for EVOC training at the Speedway. EVOC is short for Emergency Vehicle Operations Course. The vehicle was missing for some time, and it was GPS tracked to the home garage of a convention center area command sergeant. That's what my sources are telling me. And then also, allegedly, a department gas card that was issued to this sergeant was used while off-duty, allegedly to gas his personal vehicles. Now, I'm told that all police officers are given, let me get back on the screen here, but that came up on, that's my X, that's what I posted on X on September 6th, okay? Now, I'm told that all police officers at Metro are they're issued gas cards, and the gas card has their name and P number on it, because when they're driving police vehicles, that's how they get their gas. They go to a gas station, and then they fill up the car. Well, allegedly, this guy was using it off-duty, allegedly for filling up his personal vehicles, and then had this missing/stolen police vehicle from the Speedway in his garage. I mean, this is incredible stuff. And I've still got more information coming in this. It's kind of fluid, so I'll keep you posted as soon as I get the person's name, You'll find out what happened. I'll get you that information. I know some of this stuff, people, it sounds crazy, but, hey, I've broken so many stories over the years, even when I was getting the information on the Menon case. Remember, I broke that story on May 27th, but I was working on that for 2 weeks while cops were telling me what was going on, and I was like, I didn't believe it. It sounded something that would happen like decades ago. I mean, the false arrest, and cops would, making the false arrest. He was pushing people. They were pushing people to provoke fights, and it turned out all to be true. So, okay, I want to post this here. This was also on my X. I posted this the other day. Let's get it up on the screen for you. Okay, and it was a video. I'll play the video here in a second. And I said, update. Don't trust LVMPD crime statistics. Sources say violent crime classifications are still being downgraded before entry into the P1 system. I remember the other day I said the P1 system is the Motorola report writing system where the cops put their reports in and everything, and so it's the P1 system. So, and then I go on, I say lieutenants, sergeants, and officers following orders from command staff. Nothing changed since I broke the story in 2021. And that was my ex the other day. And I'll tell you the reason why I got this. There's several reasons that you'll see in future podcasts. But let me play this video. It's an excerpt of a video that I did last year. And it'll be self-explanatory as soon as we get this thing going here. Okay. I think it was the second to last podcast I did. I talked about a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department police officer, now retired, who, when they tell officers to reduce the crime classifications on crime reports, so violent felonies, sexual assaults, and robberies are downgraded to misdemeanors whenever they can. And I said that one officer told him basically, shove it, he wasn't going to do it. I said he's now retired. Well, that's the gentleman you see up on the screen there. He's retired now. That's veteran officer Eddie Leneve. He's a former robbery detective. Before he retired, he was out at the Airport Bureau. And you go back, and I'll have the link into this episode. It was episode 74 when I broke that story, and that was from November 14th of 2021. And I did a follow-up story when Sheriff Lombardo had his deputy chief at the time, Andrew Walsh, harassed this guy and asked him if he was my source of information, which he wasn't, but they harassed him anyway. And like I said in that episode, they worry about who's leaking information when they should be worried about the stuff they've been doing that's not only some of it criminal, but unethical on the police department for years, and nobody has the guts in the chain of command to come out and say anything about it to stop it. But this one police officer, Eddie Leneve, did. He was a hero police officer for trying to save somebody's life years ago, and he basically told them, fuck you, I'm not changing my report. Anyway, it's a long episode. Well, it's only about a 15-minute episode, but it's very interesting, well worth watching. So that's Eddie Leneve there. Just wanted, because I forgot his name on the podcast, and I was going brain dead, but that's him. That's Eddie Leneve, a good man. The guy had some guts, and he stuck by his principles and did the right thing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have the links to those original podcasts when I broke that story, I think 2 years ago. I think in 2021, a couple of years ago. And that's another unbelievable story. And I did a follow-up to that, like I said in there, when the Sheriff Lombardo at the time had, then I think he was Deputy Chief Andrew Walsh, who's now the undersheriff under Kevin McMahill, harassed this guy and asked him if he was my source for the story. And that's what they've been doing over years, both the criminal intelligence section and I think internal affairs, asking people who are my sources, are they my sources and stuff. And I've been breaking stories, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, for years, even when I was writing for the Baltimore Post-Examiner. And there's no other news agency media outlet in Las Vegas that has broken more stories on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department than the Doug Poppa podcast, and also when I was writing as an investigative journalist for the Baltimore Post-Examiner. And like I said, a lot of those things that I broke, those stories, are never followed up. So the reason why I played that and I put on Twitter, and I'm going to talk this in a separate podcast on this, because remember I said before when I put that thing on the screen about the cops are allegedly on suspension, they should be cops on suspension, and some of them should lose their job, because the Menon incident, that whole thing with that flex team, should never have gone on as long as it did. I know they said in the arrest report that some cops went to the union, and that's how this thing came out, and good for them. They have some integrity, but, cops were following his orders and was seeing what he was doing, bumping into people and battering people and stuff like that, and they didn't say anything. This thing continued, and now we have an additional charge, like I said, that was filed with the court on Monday. So 10 charges of oppression under the color of office. Then we have the battery on the police officer. I talked about that, I think, in the last podcast, which is unbelievable. You batter one of your own people. This guy's a freaking psycho scumbag, as far as I'm concerned. Disgrace to the police department. But, when you have a leadership like Kevin McMahill, with his past and the things that he's done in this police department, who knows why people do what they do. But I'll say this, okay? A lot of people making excuses for Menon, blaming Captain Connell, that, this is what they're alleging, that they do this because they're told that they want arrest, and they're forced to make arrest for stats. There is no quota, but, unwritten rule is go out there and make arrest. It makes me look good. Let's falsify the classification on police reports to make the department look good so we don't have a lot of violent crimes. And I think McMahill spoke to the Journal, I think yesterday or today. They did a story, and he's blowing more smoke up their butts like he's been doing for years about that and about something he said about the Menon investigation. And one of the cops forwarded me the story before. I just read it briefly, but I'll talk about that in a separate podcast, because I'm going to tell you who I think, which officers should be out of a job also. And Kevin Menon, most likely, ladies and gentlemen, is going to go to prison. Okay? I mean, 10 charges, and God knows how many more may be coming in. And then you also have this. Are the feds getting involved in this? They understand that they were at the beginning, but he can be charged with federal civil rights crimes under the feds, even if he's convicted of oppression under the color of law and state charges. You got to remember, years back, there was a police officer, and I have any notes here, I think his name was Richard Scavone, and he's the one that basically battered the prostitute. He's making an arrest. It was on body camera video, and the feds came in and charged him, and he went to federal prison for a year. So you got Kevin Menon now charged with 10 counts of oppression under the color of office, plus the 2 suborning perjury, which are felonies, the battery on a protected person, which turned out to be, like I said on the last podcast, when he pushed that police officer. And I talked about that. I don't rehash these things on these podcasts when I talk, because otherwise it takes too long. But go back and look at the first 4 Menon podcasts that I did, and I'll have those links in the description section of this video, and including the falsification of police reports video and the other one that I mentioned on the outset of this. I'll have it all in the description section, so you go back and refer to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found this interesting. The stuff that goes on with the Metro that the public never hears about, and I try to get it out. And there's a lot more stuff that I'm working on, a lot of things that I hear all the time, and some of the things are just unbelievable. A lot of the stuff is minor. A lot of cops, both male and female, fooling around with other cops' wives and supervisors and everything like that. It's a freaking disgrace. But to me, it's the stuff that goes on like this criminal stuff that I report on. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Much more coming. Remember, PayPal on the screen here. Support my work at paypal.me/Doug Poppa. Contact the podcast. No BS, no nonsense. I know I still get the hate mail through there. You're an a-hole and all this type of stuff. Fine. Call me what you want. But I do what I got to do. Police officers give me information, and I get this out. And once again, and I'll say this, is that Sheriff McMahill, under Sheriff Walsh, I would love for you to allow me to interview you uncensored, unfiltered, one-on-one. That's still open. We could do it in person. We could do it over the phone. I prefer an in-person interview, and let's iron all this stuff out. Everything that I've been talking about over the years, but it's never going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, you all have a good afternoon, a good evening. What time is it? Almost 5 o'clock Las Vegas time, and I will see you on the next podcast.
If I wouldn't do it all over again, I would take the badge and I would leave it on somebody's desk and get out of police work.
One man who confronted truth and consequences.